What's up, guys? DK here with Collectors Impact, and today we're going to go over a list of 5 key negative points when it comes to investing in cards and or collectibles. So, on the previous video, we discussed the 5 benefits and kept it all nice and positive in terms of the appeal for investing and putting money and or assets into the card market and building up a nice collection. So today it's time to go ahead and talk about the sad parts of collecting. Though, you know, just like everything in life, there's always 2 sides to every coin, right? So it's up to you to determine which side you find to be more valuable and more influential in the whole decision-making process when it comes to investing in these types of assets. Now, again, guys, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not advising. This is just for entertainment purposes only. I'm just a dude on YouTube showcasing and talking about various collectibles. With all that said, if you are interested in seeing the first video, if you haven't seen it already, link is in the description in terms of the positives. So let's go ahead and dive into these negatives, shall we? So number 1. These items are not very liquid. That's a huge problem when it comes to selling collectibles. Since they're physical items, you have to establish a sale with a buyer, of course, and that's often done either in person, at a trade show, at a card shop, or online on things like eBay, Facebook Market, TCG Player. Pick whatever it is that you want in terms of an online marketplace. That's how these things have to be bought and sold. So it's not like a stock where you can just, go on your portfolio dashboard, click a limit order, place your price, and boom, within a few minutes it's sold kind of a thing. They're very, very illiquid in that regard. If you need money, especially these days with eBay's managed payment system, it's not like the good old days where you got paid and you had access to the money. No, now you've got to sit around and wait days for it to come to you. So they're just not very liquid, and if you need money quick, it's you're going to get hosed if you have to go to something like a pawn shop or whatever. So yeah, the illiquidity of it mixed with the difficulty to find a buyer can definitely make for some pretty big lapses in judgment and or errors when it comes to selling of the cards. In other words, you have to really know what you're doing, or at least work with someone who knows what they're doing in order to maximize your return on investment in these types of items. But I'll just go ahead and mention it. Since that there is a positive to that in the sense of if you're a buyer in the market for something and you come across a scenario like that, depending on what it is, you could benefit from it. If you want to get a collection from someone who simply doesn't care, they just want to get rid of the items, that's usually something that you will encounter out there. I don't care about these. I got them from a friend, or I've had them for a long time. I'm just no longer interested, whatever it is. And then you can get them from them, and there's no harm, no foul on either side if it's a mutual agreement kind of a thing. So there's that too. Damn it. I was supposed to keep this all negative, guys. All right, let's get back to the negativity. All right, so for point number 2, the collectibles market can be highly volatile. And if any of you guys have been into the market for the year 2020 and into 2021, you know exactly what I'm talking about in terms of the extreme swings and extreme pitfalls and everything in between, depending on what the item is. These items are they're priced mostly on speculation and demand. Those are the key things that drive the market as a whole. And then there are other items within the market, of course, that are based on rarity and condition. So items with genuine rarity are things that were in a limited production. Things like first edition Charizard or Power 9 cards from Magic the Gathering. Things like that are kind of timeless pieces when it comes to collectibles because they're just so damn rare and valuable for that reason. But for 99.9% of the other collectible items, they don't fall into that category. They're based on demand, hype, speculation, and driving forces of that nature. So within the last year or so, the market for collectibles was kind of turned into like a flipping game for all intents and purposes. A lot of people who are not normally involved in the trade got involved in it because the market was super hot. So they're buying things like Pokemon cards, getting them graded, trying to flip for profit, and all that kind of stuff, which is totally fine. I'm not bashing that in any way, shape, or form. That's a viable thing. It's an organic thing that happened in the market for the most part. I mean, depending on who you ask, though, and depending on what subset of the market you're looking at, there could be some manipulation and some interference and some shadiness going on, which, yeah. But as an overall thing, when it comes to this market, it's kind of like the Wild West, and what happens, and I would consider that organic personally. I mean, there are some big players that can move the market in certain ways, so yeah, there's... You know what I'm saying, you guys? I'm kind of talking out of both sides there, but I'm just going to say that without an extreme amount of regulation, knock wood that doesn't happen, because the fun of this market is that it isn't highly regulated or anything. It is very Wild West, and it's very volatile. So just know that getting in, if you're not already in, the market is the frickin' Wild West, and you're going to be drawing from the hip at high noon in certain circumstances, metaphorically speaking. All right, number 3, when it comes to the negativities, they require storage space. Since they're physical items, you have to have a way to store them. And in addition to that, you have to have, if they're really rare, really expensive items, you probably want a good way to store them or insurance on them and other logistical things of that nature in regards to these collectibles. Certain ones of them. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. It's not like you're just in your portfolio digitally on Fidelity or whatever, Ameritrade or freaking Robinhood for whatever reason after that GameStop thing. I don't know who would want to use that when they screwed everyone. But anyway, I digress. You still have to find a way to store the cards and collectibles. Now, for most people, it's not going to be a huge issue, and I say most people being your average type of person. You work a 9 to 5, you have a smaller collection, a more manageable collection. It's not that big of a challenge. You can get a safe, you can get a safe deposit box, you can do any number of things and kind of mitigate that. But if you're a big player, a big investor, or you want to establish a very large position because the ROI attracts you, which is totally viable again, there are certain items in this industry, especially sealed product, where the ROI can be staggering. But the problem is storing that is going to be very difficult. And that point segues right into number 4, which is there's a pretty substantial risk of loss due to it being a physical item. It can be stolen. It can be, caught up in a natural disaster, a fire, a earthquake, a freaking tornado, a hurricane, a volcanic eruption, a meteor impact, you name it. It can be caught up in a physical event like that because they're physical items and they're going to be stored in your house or on another premises, and something could happen to that location, and it would be a huge heartbreak and loss if something were to happen to a very rare collectible that you put a lot of time and money into, which ultimately equates to energy resources that you worked really hard for, and now they just go up in smoke if something happens to that item. So definitely taking extra precaution on things like fire, having your valuable stuff in a fireproof safe, or of course having it stored in a bank, in a vault, if it's very valuable, is the best way to go for cards and collectibles like that. And the 5th and final point, guys, is that there are factors outside of your control that can completely screw you from left field when it comes to these items. And this is probably the biggest negative when it comes to collectibles. So I've got here some examples. This here is a Hyborian Gates booster box. It's still sealed from 1995. But guess what, guys? It's pretty much worthless because that game is dead. So the game is dead. No one wants it anymore. And even though the cards are beautiful and everything, they're not really worth a lot in terms of collectability, at least not at this point in time. There's always some sort of left field event that could happen, and this could become valuable again in the future. So certain people like to hold on to or collect dead items, you know what I mean? Like collectibles that are not very valuable in the hopes that they will become valuable one day, but that's more like the penny stock game of collectibles. But more examples, here's Inuyasha cards. These are beautiful cards, but the game died because of power creep. So if power creep comes into a game, that is like, it's like rot. You know what I mean? It's like gangrene on your freaking collectible. It's really bad for it. Or you could have some stuff from left field happen to some characters, like you know, like a megacorp like Disney can come in and acquire your character, the IP for an item that you have, and completely do a 180 on that IP and destroy the character in the public eye. The majority of Star Wars fans, for example, were not that happy with Disney sequels, and therefore the Luke Skywalker card from 1995 has suffered because of it. No one really, you know, cares that much anymore about that collectible, whereas it used to be a pretty nice item. It's not anymore. And, you know, there's always going to, of course, be collectibles within things like Star Wars and other large IPs, regardless of what happens to them from a creative standpoint and where they go in terms of the company and acquisition and everything. But it definitely does have an impact on the collectibles if you are heavily positioned in certain items and that happens to happen to them. Another thing would be this, for example, really pisses me off, so I'm going to share it with you guys. This right here is a Zion Williamson rookie card, autograph, numbered out of 75. Very rare card, Obsidian card here, and I sent it in to PSA to get it graded, and it came back a 7. And you want to know why it came back a 7? Because my dumb ass, when I sent it in, did not see that it has this little tiny imperfection here in the corner. It's got a little nick in that corner. Where the hell? There it is. So it's got a nick in the corner where some moron either mishandled it when they got it out of the pack, or it just came out of the pack like that, where it's nicked in the bottom corner. And instead of it being a freaking 9 or an 8 or an 8.5 or a 7.5 or whatever, it's a damn 7. Someone had a bad day with their lunch and did not like it. Even though that is the only imperfection on the card, it's an instant near mint. So therefore, it loses tons of value. And that was pretty much out of my control. It was an error on my part for sending it in, but, you know, it came back a 7. That's kind of what I'm saying here. In terms of grading your cards, they could always get a grade that you weren't necessarily expecting, and the investment that you made in it could be because of it. And this one actually goes more in line with the point about damage to the card, but I'll just mention it here anyway, as it is a nice thing to note. So this card has seen better days, and it's basically like if your little brother or something gets a hold of it and crumples it up, and then, you know, then you go to get it graded one day and it comes back a freaking PSA 1. Well, there you just got completely hosed. Like, if this card was a PSA 10, it would be worth thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. But as a PSA 1, it's worth a few hundred, which is still, you can't shake a stick at that because it's still a few $100s. You can do quite a lot with that, at least in the current time. You can get some food and stuff, but yeah, it's just the potential. You know, you can see the potential just rot away if the item has been damaged. Yeah, just a couple more quick examples when it comes to out of left field and grading. You know, you send these in hoping for 10s or 9s, and you get freaking an 8 on this and a 9 on this. When it, you know, you're expecting a 10, you get that 9. It can be a little bit disappointing, and it can hurt the bottom line for those types of investments. So those are what I mean by things outside of left field you have no control over, and they can really hurt your investment. Well, guys, there's definitely a lot more that I could say about these topics and more, but we'll just go ahead and end it here for now. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to post them in the comments. If you want to contribute any opinions or thoughts to this, of course, feel free to comment away or just say what's up. It's all good. Just comment, comment, sub, all that YouTube stuff. So thank you very much for coming by. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you back next time. Take care.